Have you heard of the new addition to the Go for Donnie podcast? I haven't either, but it's called Switch to Channel 2. That is where Donnie will get to ask his guests some questions, so you, the listener, get to know them better. And remember, hashtag HTFU.
Hey everybody, welcome into Switch It Channel 2, where we have the one, the only Rick Pizante with us here today. Thanks for joining us on Switch It Channel 2, Rick.
Are you kidding? I'm happy to be here, Donnie.
Let
Thanks
me
for inviting me.
explain. I don't know if I explained what Switch It Channel 2 is, just so everyone knows and you know. Just like when we're on set and you have a little chatter, you reach back and you hit that dial and you switch your walkie to Channel 2. So that way you can have your chatter and everybody listens in. And then as soon as you're done, everyone switches back to their channel while you switch back to your respective channel. So that's what Switch It Channel 2 is all about, just a little bit of chatter.
As long as you don't go 10-2 while you're switching to channel 2, you're okay. We'll save
This
that one
is
for later.
this is true. But not, you know what, now I'm thinking about it, at your level, you don't ever have a walkie.
I usually don't even wear.
Yeah, like
I
comms or
don't usually
anything.
wear. I don't usually wear anything. I hate to say it, but comms would be on a rare occasion when I really need to pay attention to things. But like. Yeah, I think I don't know if it's at my level, but I just feel like you should trust the people that you bring in to do these shows, and have faith in them, and that's kind of how I run things. I think you do it long enough, when a spark is going to become a forest fire.
Like a
So
real leader does. So that way you hire greatness around you and let
yeah,
them do their thing, and it makes you look great.
that's
And
right.
you don't have to micromanage. So I get that.
And when they fuck up, it really makes you look bad, but otherwise, it's great. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
It's true
Uh,
though.
Yeah, no, I really do try to let people, give people enough, enough rope, and most people don't hang themselves, so it's a good thing. So
So, okay. So before I ask how you got started in the industry, just give me like, let's say the Emmys. During the Emmys, like break down what you're doing on that day or during the shoot.
the Emmys, well, ironically, the Emmys was not my first job, but later in life, I was an associate producer on the Emmys, and ironically, it was around September 11th again. So the Emmys had already been canceled two times, okay, because of 9/11, essentially. And Don Misher, who just passed away, who I mean was a prolific producer and just a great guy. Everyone loved Don Misher. He did a lot of Olympics and specials and things like that. He had to go on to do another show. I was working for a gentleman named Gary Smith of the company called Smith and Hemian Productions, and then it became the Gary Smith Company. Gary is a storied producer as well, and my father-in-law was terminally ill. I was doing, we were going to go down to Cuba to do an I Love Lucy reunion special, so I was doing all the paperwork for that. And then I was going to go on to Christmas in Washington, which we just talked about. Well, in between, 9/11 happened 2 days before we were going to leave for Cuba after 6 months, 7 months, 8 months of planning.
Wow.
So we obviously couldn't go down there, and we were going to go down with Desi and Lucy's kids, to bring them back to the homeland. So that didn't work. But then September 11 happened, and then Don Mishra couldn't do the Emmys, so they awarded it to Gary Smith. Gary calls me. He's like, "Hello, Rick. Listen, I'm doing the Emmys, and I need you to shift gears and focus on that." And I'm like, Gary, my father-in-law's passing away. I got to go do this other show for Christmas in Washington for the Stevens Company, and blah blah blah. I don't think I can do it. Like, what are you talking about, Rick? The whole, gave me the whole riot act, and then anyway, he eventually convinced me to do the show, and that was my first Emmys, and that was in Century City at the Schubert Theater. It was a very somber year,
Yeah.
and I just remember having to deal again. I always got assigned a security detail and all that stuff. So we had sharpshooters across the street at the Century Plaza, and Fox Studios was the command center for all the authorities, and oh god, we were testing the air ducts for anthrax every day.
Jesus.
Like, I
Holy
mean, just
crap.
crazy, crazy stuff. So and a lot of people don't know. You don't want them to know. What happens behind the scenes sometimes because there's
They'll freak the fuck out. Yeah. They don't
they
want
would
to know that.
they would freak the fuck out. Yeah, they really would. And I mean, I've been in that position before where, I mean, on New Year's Rockin' Eve, which I'm doing now for Dick Clark, we had a medic of all people um, pocket a bunch of credentials and sell them to people that were not
Jesus.
cleared. Yeah, and this was street access, so
Oh,
we luckily we caught him before he was planning on selling them, but we caught him in before he got into the act. So, but that would have been a major security breach on New Year's Eve. You know, that's a big deal in Times Square. I mean, so fortunately we were able to avoid that, and we didn't have any issues, obviously. So yeah, crazy stuff. Crazy stories.
God. So what about like when the show's actually, I mean, I know you probably putting out fires all day long, right? But are you in the control room? Where are you during the actual show?
So I'm either in the control room or I'm out I like to walk the floor is what I call it. I like to go out and I have a lot of camaraderie with a lot of the technical people on the crew and,
Hmm.
I like to go out and press flesh and say hi to
Everybody
people.
loves Rick. Everybody loves rap. So
Well,
whoever works with rap loves you, and they
well,
love
that's very
talking to you.
kind.
So I mean, that's so I can see you totally walking around. You're like, "Yep,
Yeah.
what's up?
I
Hey,
mean,
hey,
I
hey,
talk to
hey."
the grips just like I talk to an executive
Yeah,
producer or a network executive.
yeah. You're
There's
very
no,
approachable. You're
yeah,
very approachable, Rick.
I try to be. I try to be. And, we're just people persons. As are you, Donnie. So that's a
That,
good
but
thing.
but
It's a good
but that's
quality.
a good leader. That's a good
Yeah,
leader right there. That's good
yeah,
leadership skills. Where it's not, you can't just teach everything.
yeah,
That's something that it's just comes second nature, and that's your personality. So that's cool.
yeah, yeah. And so something like the last show, one of the last shows I was doing, I was in the emergency operations center. We were in Texas, and there was some weather coming and, tornado watch and, lightning strikes and all this stuff. And, during a live show on Amazon, like the Academy of Country Music Awards, I was the one that was going to make the decision as to whether the building had to be evacuated during a live show or
Jeez.
not. Yeah.
Eh,
So,
a little pressure.
there's some pressure, there's some stress related to my job, beyond, so what I do is I do a lot of the budgeting. I do a lot of the, pairings of sensibilities, whether it be directors, producers, people that we would bring in, the crew members, the editorial staff. I try to assemble teams of people that complement each other and what the project is specific to the project, which I think is really one of my greatest strengths. Obviously, I brought you into full screen, and you
Clearly,
were there at Mystery Diner. So, and
clearly, you're fucking wise.
to be honest
Wise
with you,
beyond your
Donnie,
years.
one of the reasons I brought you in was because your work ethic. The fact that you were in the military was a big plus on your resume to me because I knew the work ethic and your commitment would be, totally. You'd be totally committed, and I really thought that was a good quality of your leadership skills as well. So that
Cool.
was,
Well, thank you. I
yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah, yeah, you bet. And so yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting ride. I started as a PA and I worked my way up the ladder. Just like any. My first job was the Oscars,
So
and
your first PA gig was the Oscars?
was the Oscars. Yeah,
Do
yeah.
tell. How did you get it?
Well, we're at the age now, Donnie. Jeff Margolis, who's another storied producer director, just passed away literally like a month ago. He was directing the Oscars, and he was a client of a company called Browncraft and Company, which was a business management slash CPA firm in Brentwood. And I had just finished Santa Monica College, and I was, planning on going to UCLA and transferring. and I responded to a classified ad in the Daily Variety, which is now owned by the gentleman I work for now, ironically.
That's crazy.
It's
That's
all
awesome.
it's all just 6 degrees, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I got the job, and it was to be a runner, basically. I was running, making deposits. I was going to people's homes to deliver checks to be signed or petty cash for their wives to use during the week or whatever it happened to be. I took cars in to be serviced. I did drug runs. I did, you name it. I mean,
Did it
I've done
all.
it.
You're a runner.
I even had to go and demonstrate a penile implant one time. So
I'm sorry.
yeah, yeah,
Sorry.
true
What did
story.
you just say? You what? You
I
demoed?
had to go to the doctor's office to pick up a penile implant to demonstrate it to a comedian who is now deceased. I guess I could say now because I was under an NDA before. Was Flip Wilson, who was the first black comedian to play the Apollo Theater and has his own dressing room to this day. And he had a big variety show in the '60s and really funny. He was like one of the first he was one of the first comedians, not even black comedians, but first comedians to do something in drag. I know Milton Berle did but his character was Geraldine. So anyone that wants to go look through the annals of history, go look at type in Flip Wilson Geraldine, and it is hilarious. That character's funny, like pre-Living Color type stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh,
But I'm
nice.
sure if you ask Jamie Foxx or any of the guys, they'd be like, "Oh my God, Flip Wilson was amazing." So and a true vanguard. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, I went out there in the morning, and the whole place just reeked of weed, and at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I he had a 20-something-year-old beautiful smoke show Swedish girlfriend, and he was in his probably like 60s at that point, and I brought this thing out, and it was like in a cylindrical tube, and I took it out, and it's like the shaft of the male anatomy, and a little like a little tube that went to a pump that was inserted in the groin. So you pump it like an old Reebok tennis shoe, and it, that kind of thing. And then you release the pressure like a valve, and it goes,
Oh my god.
and he would, oh my
Oh.
God, this is the greatest thing ever, man. Just now you go back to that doctor and you tell him I want the Rolls Royce model, not the Cadillac. Okay. So I go back in there and I tell him he wants the Rolls Royce model, and he goes, so that means he wants the bigger model, right? 2 weeks after the surgery, he decides to go on a driving trip to the Grand Canyon and his Range Rover. He has to stop halfway because he's in such pain from sitting there with this thing in him that I had to make arrangements to have his Range Rover towed back, and he flew home. So with
What
his
the?
girlfriend, yeah. So that was a funny story. Anyway, I don't know how I got
Oh
off
my
that, but I'm just
god.
proving
Nice.
to you the fact that
That
I've
was.
done a few different
What,
things.
yeah, one of your gigs as a runner. That's one of the things you got to do is experience picking up penile implant for a comedian.
Yeah,
That's pretty
really
awesome.
interesting, right? And
Yeah.
then, yeah, I went to Marlon Brando's house after his son had killed the daughter's fiance. I had to go
Good
to
lord.
Marlon Brando's house, and I had to speak in code with him because he shared the property with Jack Nicholson up on Mulholland Drive. And I had to go get paper signed, so I went up to his house and pressed the intercom, and I had to say something, blue jeans, are brown and blue and yellow and gold, or some stupid code to let him know that it was me. And I went in, and he comes out, and these two massive dogs come over to my window, the nicest dogs ever, but they were so daunting. Bill and Tim were their names, and
Bill and Tim.
yeah,
His
Bill and
dog's names are
Tim.
Bill and Tim.
Bill and Tim. And he comes over, and he's in a bathrobe, and I met Marlon Brando. I mean, it's just crazy stuff. I've done a lot of different things and met a lot of different people,
Did he
and
did he talk to you like Marlon Brando?
yeah, he sounded like Marlon Brando, definitely. And he spent a lot of time, and he has an island called Tetiaroa, which is in French Polynesia in Tahiti. And so, when he was dating the stuff, he was doing the day, then the month, then the year. And I said, no, 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 Mr. Brando, it's month, day, year. Can you, do that? And he's like, are you trying to screw me? Like it was really funny and super cool guy. I didn't ask for his autograph, but I was going down the hill to make deposits, and I stopped at one bank, and then I took the pouch and I left it on the top of my car, and I must have driven off. And Marlon Brando's deposits flew off the car in the pouch, and someone retrieved them and saw that it
Wow.
was Marlon Brando and signed checks and everything. And I got a call from the office saying, did you go to the bank for Marlon yet? And I said, no, I'm on my way there now. And they're like, are you sure you're on the way there now? I'm like, yeah, I'm on my way. And well, you don't have the checks because someone just called us and said they have Marlon Brando's checks. And I'm like, what? So I had to go, and part of the exchange was I needed to guarantee and insure this guy that I would get a signed headshot of Marlon Brando in exchange for the checks to get them back. And these are like
Ugh.
checks, big checks. Yeah, yeah.
Duh.
So
Wow.
yeah, so I had to go up there and with my head between my legs and ask him for an autographed headshot, and he was cool about it. He was joking with me, but I don't know. I've met a lot of different people, and I'm not impressed by celebrity. There are very
Yeah.
few people, but it's cool. They're just people too.
A lot of celebrity are very insecure. They're always looking for.
Well, they're looking for that reassurance, and just I think the people that they have around them most of the time are yes men. Yes people.
Yeah, they're not fucking real with
So
them.
yeah, and I always try to be real with people and respectful, obviously, but like Tom. So this Brown Craft and Company firm where I started as a runner had all these celebrity actors, producers, directors in the industry. They were all clients, so that's how I got into the industry.
Mm.
Long story short. And then I started saying, well, I'd really like to offer my time on the weekends, anything I can do. And that's how I got my first job on the Oscars. So there you go.
Damn. Wow. All right. That's
Button
pretty
that one
cool.
up.
That's bow
A
tie.
few
Boop.
detours. Yeah.
And I think I told you my story about working, at the front desk at MTV
Oh my
for a
gosh.
summer. I answered
When
phones. It
MTV
was
was MTV.
back when it was MTV, and it was the craziest thing there was the contrast of casting, if you would. So you can imagine, for those that don't know, MTV networks comprised of like MTV, MTV2, Spike, Comedy Central, Nickelodeon, CMT, VH1. And so back then, Spike was the all men's channel. It was
Oh yeah.
all men's programming, right?
I pitched
So
a show to them. Yeah. Yeah. I know.
there was a
Right.
lot of the old Duffy, good old Tim, good
Good old.
old Timmy.
I pitched a show to Mike Duffy, and it got to Tim. So there you go.
Yeah, no, he. That's how I know Tim, and Tim is a guest on the show. We'll be releasing his
That's
episode
awesome.
here
I
soon.
love the Duffy brothers. They're so
They're
cool.
so great. They're so great. But the contrast of casting, what I'm talking about, when you would have a Nickelodeon casting where you have all these kids, they'd come check in and sit down, and then you would have or Wild and Out, MTV Wild and Out, where you have all these young,
Nick Cannon. Yeah.
barely dressed, scantily dressed, and same with the Spike. Like they had these shows where these women this woman came up and her nipple, the top that she's wearing, her nipple was out as she's talking to me. I mean, the thing's staring at me like, hey Donnie, and I'm just like sitting here. I'm trying to type to my to my partner Helena. I'm like, oh my god, nipple. Like, can you see it? And the women didn't even know. So they're wearing these little tops, and then they'd go sit next to the kids, and it was just so bizarre. Or the people that just come in, like the
Oh yeah.
random
Oh yeah.
celebs are just people. So it was
There's
a
nothing
cool
wrong with
place to get my start in this industry. Going from that, of course, that actually set me up for Suburban Virgin. So I was really prepped to get to a show where we tried to get virgins laid.
Jesus, man, that's awesome. That's awesome. I actually,
So I got that
Mike,
down.
we're talking about the Duffys, and Mike Duffy actually hired me at T Group, and I think he was just really impressed that I had just come off The Voice. I was a co-executive producer of The Voice in season when I launched it here in the United States for Mark Burnett and John DeMol.
I didn't know
And
that. That's awesome.
yeah, it was a big show. It was a massive show, and I had a very short timeline to produce it, to get it up and running, because we were competing against X Factor to get to air first, right? So yeah, I got a call at the end of January. I was doing the BET honors in DC, and again, I spent a lot of time in DC, and then I had to launch, the main show, which was, the live variety show, The Voice, and then we had a digital crew and a reality crew. So it was like three different departments, and we were shooting our first show March 20th. When I was hired at the beginning of February, the only people that were hired were the executive producing staff. That was it. It was four people. So we had to staff the
Wow.
entire show in like a month. Yeah, it was
Holy
crazy.
crap.
It was crazy.
So that's the stage show and any second
All
unit
the
shoot as
reality
well.
beats behind the scenes, and then all the digital stuff beyond that. So
Did
yeah,
Rupert do some of that for them? For you?
I don't think at that time. No, I don't think at that time. Maybe after I left. I was like I was a special ops guy. You're not the only one in the military, buddy. I even though I didn't serve. So yeah, I get the really difficult assignments, and we drop in under the cover of darkness and be extracted before anyone knew you were there, kind of
See,
stuff.
that just means I know you could be in the military because you have that mindset where you
Yeah.
like the challenge as well. I like a good. I'm a problem solver. I like a good wrench thrown
You
at me, and you got to dodge and you got to figure that shit out. And it's just so satisfying when you pull some shit out of your ass where people are like, how did you do that?
we are
And it's
yeah.
satisfying,
We are
right?
master puzzle builders and problem solvers, really, is what
Hmm.
we are. But I think, when it comes down to, like you said, being, diligent about stuff and just liking the thrill. Clearly, you did Top Gear. I love Top Gear. The U.S. show was great. The British show was great.
So much
And
fun.
fast cars and just stunts and like all this crazy dangerous shit, and it's just like you push yourself, to do really interesting things. And I think I've done a lot of different formats and genres and stuff like that. And yeah, some of them are more difficult than others. I do, I come from live TV, so like you always have to have a contingency plan, and there's very little room for forgiveness.
You're right, and I've been lucky to do. I worked with George Barnes, who is another a good friend and a guest coming up on my podcast. He owns Take Two Productions, and a handful of years ago, I worked with him on a lot of live stream red carpet events, or just
Okay.
and so everything's live, and producing it. It's fun. It might be a little smaller. It might be like 20, 30 minutes. But man, it's live. It's exhilarating because it's live. And the worst thing that you can have is dead time on something that's live when you have the client right there as well. So I loved it. And I really thrive in controlled chaos, I like to think. I think that's where I'm really good, especially when, on Top Gear, I was AD. So I just had to be on top of everything all
Oh,
the
right.
time. And so I really,
Safety and
yeah.
everything.
So
Yeah.
you find what you thrive in. And I just like that. And I think that's what you probably like as well, is that excitement of that live, of what can happen and what you can do to fix it if
Yeah,
something does come
yeah,
up.
yeah, and you just have to think on your feet and be really quick,
Yeah.
to be a problem solver. And the live thing you mentioned. I think I told you I was doing The Voice, and the Rose Parade, and they wanted this activation in the Rose Parade with a big float with The Voice and the three winners, and the three runners up, I should say. And I went to LA County High School for the Arts to get to bring in all these 30 kids to audition to be part of to the float as dancers. They call them outwalkers, just so you guys know. And the Rose Parade's pretty big deal. I'm local out here in South Pasadena, so I'm really into the community and all that kind of stuff. And there were two performance spots. One was on Orange Grove, and the other one's on Colorado, right by the Norton Simon Museum. And I had all the NBC executives and everyone and their families there, and on the Colorado side. We had, made all the kids go through these auditions. They had to learn choreography, the music. They got wardrobe fitted, all this stuff that they're going to have to go through in their lifetime anyway, because it's a performing arts high school. So, I thought, well, let's make them work for it. So once we got the final cast together, the first performance went really well, just as expected. And then the float is turning the corner, right? And to get to the second position, and it stops. And, right in front of the NBC booth. And Hoda and Al are not helping. They're not oh, we must be having technical issues, blah, blah, blah. I didn't have a headset again, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And I'm just wave, that whole thing. 7 minutes of airtime goes on live TV. That is a death sentence, and I'm like, fuck, I am never going to work again in my life. This is horrible. It turns out there was a SeaWorld float, a couple floats up, and there were protesters that launched an airship, a blimp that was shaped like Shamu, and it said SeaWorld kills orcas or something like that. It took the sheriff's department 7 minutes to get them off the streets and find who was controlling the blimp and all this stuff. So we're 7 minutes behind on the parade, and I've got the Rose Parade guy in my ear going, we gotta go. And they wanted to blow past the second performance right in front of the NBC executives and their families. I'm like, I went out there like the guy in Tiananmen Square in front of the tanks, and I just said, stop, and we did the performance, and it went off fine, thank God. And I went out to the desert that weekend thinking, oh my God, I'm going to bury my head in the sand. I'm screwed. I'm never working in this town again. Of course, I get the call while I'm out there to come in Monday to NBC. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm so screwed. I'm just going to get my head handed to me. I go in there. I walk into this conference room filled with executives. They're all look kind of serious. And, oh, well, we just want to talk to you about, the success of the Rose Parade. And I'm like, yeah, I'm really, I was about to go. I'm really sorry. I don't know. We were so ecstatic with the outcome of the Rose Parade. We had 7 minutes of uninterrupted airtime focused on the voice float from every station that was covering the parade. We couldn't buy that amount of advertising for the money we spent. Thank you so much, I'm like, oh, fuck me, I couldn't believe it. It was the best.
That's fucking amazing how things work out. That's awesome.
Yeah. So
Caught
anyway,
you off
I
guard.
got a lot of stories. I'm sorry. I keep going, but
no, it's fine. But I have one question for you, or maybe it's a statement. Maybe you feel the way I do. So in our industry, maybe it's different because you're not into reality too much, but I see it on I don't know. I see the two sides of what come together to make any production happen. You have the creative side and you have the production side.
yeah.
And it seems like in the production side, you move up through the ranks like you have, and you have the experience to be there, to lead, to manage people. On the other side, the creative side, they elevate people to the same level, and they're called showrunners. They're called executive producers. And at that level, they're supposed to manage people, except they're not managers of people. They never have been. They're only creative. But we keep elevating these people to manage other people below them, and it hardly ever works.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're right. I think the creatives. Well, the thing that I struggle with sometimes is you get these producers and they think they're very talented. I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying that they think they're really crafty, like they're going to try to pull a fast one on you. They're always looking for corners to pull a fast one, or convince you why they should be able to do something that's wildly dangerous or something. And I can't even imagine on Top Gear what you must have gone through. Oh my God, that must have been crazy. But I had one producer wanted some contestant to jump off a 2-story roof into a swimming pool, and I'm like, probably not a good idea. one contestant on Mystery Diners, the show we worked on together. We were in a restaurant and they wanted to let a snake out of the bag, and the audio girl was freaked out by that. And then with one restaurant, we had an alligator that was running through the restaurant, and
Oh my gosh.
I mean, just crazy stuff, And they're like, "Oh, it'll be fine. It's just a baby alligator." Well, yeah. When you call the insurance company and tell them that you need to file a special, a certificate for an alligator, they're going to think, what are you talking about? You're going to let an alligator go on set? No, we had to take, that shrink wrap plastic tape and put it around the alligator's mouth. And, it's still a wild animal, It's like, regardless if it's a baby,
And then here comes
crazy.
PETA. And then here comes PETA that they're not thinking about.
PETA.
Yeah. No, it's the little things that, clearly on one side, I want to call it this side of the aisle, that we think of all the time. And the other side just doesn't. They want to, a lot of times they want to do without thinking. Now, there are exceptions. I have worked with some amazing creative executive showrunners that do think the way we do. And, 9 out of 10 times they came through the ranks like we have, where they've done pretty much everything, so they know what it takes to get things done. But it seems like we always, I don't know, it seems like we failed, the system's failed us to where not even these companies are giving these showrunners any leadership training. Like zero.
Yeah.
And then they throw them to the wolves, and they don't succeed, and they wonder why, they're not bringing a team together. So,
I got to be honest, like, I came up with like, in live TV and variety television, and, there's a high degree of professionalism that goes along with that, and, because it is live and it's, you can't mess up.
right.
And people know when you don't know what you're talking about. But then I got into reality, and digital, and, reality people work really hard. That was the first time I heard a minimum 12-hour day. That was the first time I heard that.
Yeah.
And, for as many hours as you and I have racked up, I swear to God, I think we would be probably, the richest men alive, if we weren't, or maybe we've racked up enough.
We got paid
to be,
hours.
Maybe get enough to be on minimum wage for all of our career. But then and then the hardest working people I found were the roadies, like on tours and stuff like that. Oh my God, they're in one, they're ripping down stuff and moving to the next one the next day, and it was crazy.
Let me ask you one last thing. What's the craziest prop you think you've ever used on set?
Craziest prop I've ever used on set? Craziest prop, vibrator? I don't know.
It's all right. Vibrator, or the penis implant.
Could have been the penile
probably.
implant.
The penile implant. Man, that's funny. I know you got to get going, man. They keep calling me back to my channel as well. So, guys, thanks for coming, Rick. I really appreciate you coming. Don't forget to come and check out Go for Donnie, you guys, my YouTube channel at Go for Donnie. This is Switchy Channel 2. This will be on all the podcast platforms, from YouTube to Spotify to Apple to Amazon. And you can also watch this video on my YouTube channel or my website, gofordonnie.com. Thanks, Rick. I really appreciate it. We got to get back to our channel, man.
You bet, Donnie. Great to see you, pal.
Yeah,
we'll do it again soon. Okay,
right.
Take care, buddy.
Later.
All right, bye-bye.
Production for Donnie.
Go for Donnie. Locations for Donnie. Go for Donnie.
Habitat for Donnie.
Go for Donnie.
Hey, Donnie, what the hell are they doing?